Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as we've told how to voice radio, so today I'm going to lead you in a nice discussion, I hope at least, of one of the best cards that nobody is talking about. It is, wait for it, Sharpedo EX, and yes, I'm aware that's not actually a big surprise. It's made very clear by both the title and the thumbnail, but I'm forgiving myself with this. Sharpedo EX is a card that came out back in Primal Clash, and it's been given very, very little love. Now, I played against this in a tournament recently, and it made me realise that with just the right conditions, there is a chance that this could be an effective card. So, without any further ado, let's have a look. First of all, I mean, it's a dark type, so I suppose that means that Baby Yveltal could be a bit of fun. It is weak to lightning rather than fighting, which is good. It covers a weakness a little bit, of course. You know, Yveltal is also weak to lightning. It has no fighting resistance, which is weirdly actually good, because Zeb Striker runs through Yveltal and is fighting resistance, but not Sharpedo. And a retreat cost of 1 is always good. So the question is, what does it do? Well, the first attack is Hunt. And for 2 energy, and this is where it falls down, it's a little bit expensive, but of course there are cards like Max Elixir, for instance, that can help you to get that energy on him nice and early. You drag one of your opponent's bench Pokemon into the active and you do 30 damage. Now, this is good for 2 reasons. First of all, there are a couple of cards in the current format that have 30 HP. Galvantula, it sees a little bit of play, especially in decks like Rainbow Road. There is a video about that. I've left a link in the description. And Galvantula evolves from a 30 HP Joltik. So this basically says to your opponent, ha ha ha, you don't get to put a Joltik on the bench, not without me immediately KOing it. The other example I'll give you is that Gyarados has started to see a little bit of love lately. It had a good finish in a recent regional championship, and Gyarados evolves from a 30 HP Magikarp. Very nice. But the other thing that Hunt does, it just strands something in the active. A lot of decks nowadays play Hooper EX, and Hooper is a Pokemon that has a retreat cost of 2. And it means that if it's stuck in the active, you need to draw into a Floatstone or a Switch or something like that, or it gets stranded in the active. So Sharpedo can use Hunt to try and strand these Pokemon in the active to get some cheeky KOs. Now, luckily, when I played against Sharpedo, I had Zoroark on my side, who allowed me to just jump in the active. But otherwise, this could be a little bit scary. So yeah, it's got some utility, but really it's the second attack that we're looking at here. Jagged Fang. Discard an energy attached to this Pokemon, then discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, and it does 100 damage. Now the key is, it says discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. You get the choice, your opponent doesn't get the choice. So if they've got a special energy, something like Double Colorless, which is more useful for them, you get to discard that one, rather than letting them discard some basic energy that they would much rather hang on to. There we go. Quite nice. Now, it 2-hit KOs pretty much everything, especially if you had a Fighting Fury belt. There will be the odd decks here and there, things like Primal Groudon that have more than 220. Most things will be 2-hit KO'd. And honestly, there's an awful lot of non-EXs, most of them will have 110 or less HP, so you can actually be ripping off some 1-hit KOs here as you go. But here's the key, and I've said this on my videos a number of times. If you can't 1-hit KO, then 2-hit KO with Disruption. And that's what Sharpedo does. You do 100 damage and you discard their energy to try and make sure that they cannot attack you the following turn. Now, you do have to discard an energy attached to Sharpedo every single turn. That is a little bit of a problem in terms of you're constantly re-upping the energy on Sharpedo rather than building another Pokemon on your bench. But there are plenty of options for accelerating energy. You've got Baby Yveltal, you've got Max Elixir, and coming in the Sun and Moon set, we've got Lurantis. Again, there is a video about her in the description, so feel free to go and check that out. I think Sharpedo has a lot of potential because of this second attack. There are plenty of Pokemon that cannot hold up to this. But of course, why would you just want to get rid of one energy per turn? And this is where I think Sharpedo can really shine. It's about getting rid of all of their energy. So let's look at a couple of potential partners for Sharpedo. If you want to stick with the dark theory for the minute, just play an entirely dark deck, how about Crawdaunt? You play Crawdaunt and you get to discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now it's single use and it's a bit of a pain to get going when you need it, but it helps. One thing I'm slightly more of a fan of here is Slowking. Again, it's a stage 1, but once a turn, you get to flip a coin, and if heads, move an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon to one of his or her bench. And you'll here want to just strand a whole bunch of energy on a Shaman, for instance, just to stop them being able to do anything constructive with it. Okay, Shaman can Sky Return for 30 damage. Well, fine, go right ahead. If you're doing 30 damage to me, I can live with this. While we're mentioning Shaman, of course, notice that Shaman has 110 HP, and Sharpedo does 110 damage when he has a Fighting Fury belt. If you don't want to pair him with a Pokemon, how about Crushing Hammer, or Enhanced Hammer, or Team Flare Grunt? I think if you're just discarding an energy from them, discarding an energy from you, you could run into a situation where you're hurting yourself as much as them. Not every game, but in some games. But if you combine this either with Slowking, because I like him more than Crawdaunt, or Hammers, then you can get in a situation where your opponent constantly doesn't have any energy. And if your opponent doesn't have any energy, they can't attack you. And when they can't attack, 2-hit KOs are perfectly okay, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the big trouble for Sharpedo, like I've said, is the fact that he needs free energy. If these attacks were 1 energy for Hunt and 2 energy for Jagged Saber, then I think this would be an absolute powerhouse of a deck. But I think it's good. And I say this in a lot of videos because I'm sorry, it's relevant in a lot of videos. You could play this with VILEPLUME. Both of these attacks get better when your opponent is trainer locked. Hunt strands something in the active which, oh yeah, by the way, they're not going to be able to play Switch or Floatstone. And Jagged Saber does 100 damage while discarding their energy. This is good. I mean, Lysander's a card that everybody plays. We've all played Lysander to strand something in the active. How about doing that while doing 30 damage while they are trainer locked? Because you know what? It's a viable strategy, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Sharpedo's a very straightforward card. Like I say, there's those 2 attacks, and I've told you what they're going to be used for, and I've suggested what I believe are the most sensible partners. I don't see Sharpedo as a tech. I don't see you playing one Sharpedo in a Darkrai list and it really helping like that. I see Sharpedo as a dedicated energy denial deck. And let's see how it could fare. So, let's go for Rayquaza. Now, Rayquaza is dipping in popularity, but it's still a good deck. Rayquaza is much, much faster, not to mention the fact that they can play a combination of double colourless energy and Mega Turbo to get all of the energy they need in a single turn, making your energy denial much less effective. But you can play Silent Lab here. Silent Lab, there's no stadium you need. You can play Reverse Valley. Reverse Valley means that your attacks do 10 more damage, so with that you could even 2-hit KO a Primal Groudon, 100 plus 10 for the Fighting Fury bout, plus 10 for the Reverse Valley. But given that this is a disruption deck, I am much more of a fan of Silent Lab. Turn off those pesky Shamans and Hoopers. Slow Rayquaza right down. And if you slow them down, now we can be rolling. With a Fighting Fury bout, you've got 210 HP. That means that Rayquaza will need a Skyfield and 7 benched Pokemon in order to get a one-hit KO. Now, you'll need to hit a couple max elixirs in this game, but you could even set up behind a couple of Yveltals if you so wished. There is certainly chances for a comeback here. I imagine you'd go down 2 to 4 prizes early, but an N plus a Silent Lab plus getting rid of all their energy as they're putting it down. I don't think you're going to win in the first couple of turns against Rayquaza. I don't think you're going to win against Rayquaza in sudden death, but I think it has potential in the long game. Now, Psychic Infinity can work out nicely here because they only do 160 with a double colourless energy. You get a Fighting Fury belt on you, and they are going to need 4 energy to your 3 to go and get themselves a one-hit KO. And you're getting rid of their energy here. And, of course, they're going to try and use Shrine of Memories to copy damage change from regular Mewtwo, but that is a free energy attack. And if you're getting rid of all their energy, they're not using damage change. And if you get rid of all their energy, they're not getting 4 energy on themselves to go ahead and use Psychic Infinity. And actually, the discard on yourself could be useful here, because then you'll have 2 energy going into the turn, and they will need 5 energy to get the one-hit KO. I am assuming in this maths that you have a Fighting Fury belt, but in this deck you should be playing 4 Fighting Fury belts. Now, there are some weird matchups which are very bad for this deck. For instance, Zoroark Break utterly wrecks this deck. That is how I was able to win when I played this in a recent League Challenge. I had Zoroark Break, and you can copy Jagged Saber for a single Dark Energy, so you do 100 and discard their energy, but my opponent wasn't playing a particularly fast version. There was no Max Elixirs. Had they been playing Max Elixir and KO'd my Zoroark in one hit before I got the break going, then it could have been a very, very different story. You will very much struggle against Volcanion here. Now, you will need Silent Lab here. You will need it so hard, because you need to be turning off the Steam Up ability on Volcanion EX, or else they will be able to steam up a bunch of times and then just get some cheeky one-hit KOs, at which point you're not going to win. The energy denial here will not be as effective because Volcanion, the non-EX, the baby Volcanion, hey Nick, will be able to recover a load of their energy, but you can still use a combination of Crushing Hammer, Team Flare Grunt, and Jagged Saber to make sure that they never have free energy on them at a time, force them to use that little attack with Volcanion, while you have Silent Lab on the field, and you can stop them really KOing you in more than like 8 hits, 9 hits. And now we could be rolling. And let's go with Giratina. Giratina is a very popular Pokemon at the moment. And you know what? Giratina needs 4 energy. And if you can get free energy on this Sharpedo in a couple of turns, then here I would think you'd have a pretty good matchup against Giratina, because you get rid of all of their energy using your hammers, and then they're not able to ever actually go and attack. Yes, a lot of Giratina decks play Darkrai, but what does Darkrai do? Darkrai tries to get a whole bunch of energy on the field so that they can one-hit KO you. Well, if you're getting rid of all their energy, that is not going to happen. Now, let's be very clear about this, ladies and gentlemen. I am not saying Sharpedo is the best deck in the world. If it was, somebody would be playing it by now. What I am saying is Sharpedo is an underappreciated card. I'm saying it has potential that people are not looking into. I'm saying that with Max Elixir, Fighting Fury Belt, and Silent Lab, you could make a disruption deck that could do a bit of damage and have some positive matchups against some good decks. That is all I'm saying. I think it needs to be tested. Now, this example, don't take this very, 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 very literally, but think about Mega Audino. Nobody thought that card was good. Everyone dismissed it as garbage. It won Worlds. Yes, I've done a video about that. Yes, there's a link in the description. Now, let's be clear. I'm not saying Sharpedo is going to win Worlds. I am saying that sometimes there are decks out there that people discount way too quickly. And I think Sharpedo could be one of them. Give it a test. Just make a deck with 4 Sharpedo and 4 Fighting Fury Belt and a whole bunch of hammers and max elixirs and silent labs and see what you can do with it. It has got to be worth a go, ladies and gentlemen. It's clearly rogue deck territory, but somebody out there is going to be able to make a very, very good Sharpedo deck. And you know what? Why can't that person be you? Now, you know the deal. There's a comment section, there's a like button, there's a subscribe button. It's YouTube. You know how this works. Do the appropriate things. You can follow me on Twitter @TheWassy, and I heartily suggest that you do. And the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourself until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCGRadio.